Alright, I just finished watching the Silent Hill movie, which is based on the series with the same name. It's directed by Christophe Gans, and from looking at it, this film is actually very, very, very creepy, in my opinion. It probably might mean something different to fans who actually played the series, but since I haven't, I found it quite unsettling. The story revolves around a woman named Rose who is trying to cure her adopted child's illness because there has been circumstances in which she sleepwalks and shouts out Silent Hill. So what they decided to do was take her to Silent Hill to see if they could find some answers. Or she goes alone, takes her adopted daughter with her to Silent Hill to figure out what's going on and how to cure her illness. Unfortunately, not after a car crash, she lost her daughter, but that's when her problems and everything else starts to unravel. This film has the three major elements that I would associate with any horror or any good horror game or movie. First things first. One, unsettle. Trying to make What the film does is try to make things a little bit askew from what they normally are. For instance, when Rose walks into Silent Hill, it's constantly this grayish fog, and she's kind of trapped in this foggy world. And it rains, and instead of snow, it snows ash, so it's a constant, almost like a constant burning. Then it doesn't stop there. It continues, in which, after this air raid siren, apparently Silent Hill converts into this evil, hellish underworld where monsters appear out of nowhere and start attacking people. The monsters they made to look creepy, but still kind of familiar, almost human, so not typically different from any other monster film. And they did in fact bring in a cameo of Pyramid Man, or Pyramid Head, but unfortunately he doesn't have much of a role except for fan service, as he basically shows up from time to time but is not the main villain. So as the story goes along, the second part is there's no turning back. So basically, Rose throughout the movie is trapped in this other reality. She cannot escape it. She cannot escape the foggy world or the underworld. And thirdly, make the devil seem a bit appealing or unusual. For instance, the one that's the thing that the people call the demon is actually a little girl who is a manifestation of a girl who was burned in a pit 30 years ago because she was born without a father and was called a demon by the populace. So by saying that is actually the roots of the darkness which befalls Silent Hill from time to time. It's basically a manifestation of her hate for everyone and a way to enact revenge against those who have killed her. So Rose basically went down the rabbit hole literally, and her husband unfortunately only scratches the surface, as the police don't exactly help her and they seem to be getting in her way, and they seem almost more like the villains in an X-File show and episode in which the people just know everything but tell nothing. So basically it has this interesting horror aspect, and I find it interesting that they try to actually add some degree of unsettling throughout it. But unless of course Pyramid Head is supposed to be the apex of complete and utter horror, that is Silent Hill. The apex is actually more like the little girl that actually was hospitalized after being found burned alive, and barbed wire emerges. But also the double aspect that I mentioned actually extends a little further, because the populace, it seems to be divided. It's basically one or a few versus the many. And the many are the populace, religious populace who basically fear practically everything and will follow anyone who actually finds a solution to that fear. And so the why they said that they're destroying a demon, in fact they become the demons themselves. They are the manifestations of evil. And so they make the film pretty interesting, as far as, though the main character, I think in the first Silent Hill, was male, they made it the character female, but with the same emotional confusion throughout the whole ordeal, because basically it follows the instincts of a mother and a child, but then it extends further as to who do you trust, because many characters come and go in Silent Hill, and Rose feels very uneasy about each one of them. The police officer tried to arrest her, but she still needs her help. And the religious give her a way to actually fight the demon, but they ultimately try and burn her child. So I don't know how to actually extend this as far as the relations to Silent Hill the game. I actually have heard that it's kind of slow, or to some extent bland. Basically, events unfold, but there isn't much of a apex or anything like that. But the one thing that really throws me off is the ending. The ending didn't make sense to me, because it seemed as if everything is resolved, and yet Rose and Sharon, her adopted daughter, are still trapped in the Silent Hill reality. Because when they come home, it's in this gray fog, and Rose's husband doesn't appear. But in the husband's reality, Sharon and Rose don't exist. So I don't really understand. I think this is probably what I meant with the second point. There is no turning back. Basically, if you go back in a horror film or game, if you go back the way you came, basically, as far as emotionally or physically, then the game has no purpose. You've lost. So, by changing it, ultimately, there's nothing that could have erased what have happened in the experiences of Silent Hill, and that, I think, is what the film is trying to do. If you have any better inputs on, at least for someone who has actually played Silent Hill, I would gladly hear your comments, so please add them. And I don't know what to think about this. It's creepy as far as a horror film is concerned, but as far as a game made into a film, it's hard to say. So please provide your input.